Dalhousie University's Agri-Food Analytics Lab has just released a shocking prediction. By 2026, 4,000 restaurants in Canada will close their doors forever. This number is not just a cold statistic, it is the shattering of 4,000 entrepreneurial dreams and the disappearance of tens of thousands of jobs. But if you were an economic crime investigator, you would discover a far more terrifying truth. These 4,000 restaurants are just the tip of the iceberg. Their death exposes an ongoing wealth theft of unprecedented scale. The victims? Every young person working hard yet unable to afford a home, every talented professional choosing to leave, and every middle-class family watching their savings be devoured by inflation. The criminal? An economic system that appears prosperous, but is actually devouring its own future. Now, let's go deep into the investigation scene of this case together. Crime Scene 1. The murder of entrepreneurial dreams. Location: any bank in Canada. Time: any day in 2025. Victim: Canada's innovative future. If you were an economic crime investigator, you would need to reconstruct this crime scene. Imagine you are a 31-year-old engineering PhD, holding a clean technology patent capable of increasing energy extraction efficiency by 30%. You need $800,000 to build a pilot plant, and this technology could change the entire industry. You walk into the bank, and the loan officer shakes their head after carefully scrutinizing your business plan, patent certificate, and market forecasts. The technology risk is too high, and the return cycle is too long, so we cannot approve this loan. Frustrated, you walk out of the bank, but suddenly remember a friend's advice. 20 minutes later, you walk back into the same bank. Actually, I want to buy a detached house built in the 1970s that needs a new roof and heating system. The same loan officer instantly becomes enthusiastic. We can help you with that. A $1.2 million mortgage with a favorable rate, and we can extend the amortization to 30 years. Congratulations on becoming a homeowner. This is the first piece of evidence you discover: systematic murder by capital. According to the latest data from Statistics Canada, monthly investment in residential construction is about $15 billion, while investment in non-residential construction is only about $7 billion. For every $100 we spend on sleeping boxes, less than $50 is invested in production facilities that can actually create wealth. An OECD report confirms an even deeper criminal statistic. Canadian companies invest only 41% of what US companies do in new equipment and technology for their workers. Simply put, if a US company spends $100 to buy new machines for workers, a Canadian company spends only $41. German companies spend more than double what we do. Canadian workers are like artisans competing with Stone Age tools, while workers in other countries are already using robots. While American investors are pouring tens of billions into OpenAI and the German government is investing in semiconductor factories, Canada's smart money is queuing up for pre-construction condos in Toronto. Crime Scene 2. The HELOC drug distribution case. Modus operandi: systemic debt inducement. Weapon: home equity line of credit. If you were an economic crime investigator, you would uncover another typical case. Imagine you were a newly immigrant couple who bought a 3-bedroom detached house in Winnipeg for $420,000 in 2016. You lived frugally and paid off a little extra on the loan each month, and by 2022, the house's valuation had risen to $950,000. The bank relationship manager calls. Congratulations! You now have $530,000 in home equity. Our HELOC product allows you to unlock this wealth to improve your quality of life. The key word here is unlock, as if this $530,000 were imprisoned real wealth, rather than just a market valuation figure. You fell into the classic wealth illusion trap, using the HELOC to buy a new car, renovate the kitchen and basement, and even invest in a small condo for your child's education fund. As an investigator, you discover that this drug is being distributed on a massive scale nationwide. Statistics Canada's latest data shows that by the third quarter of 2025, Canada's household debt-to-disposable income ratio reached 176.7%. This means the average household debt is 1.77 times their annual income, the highest ratio among G7 countries. Then, starting in 2022, interest rates rose sharply from 0.25%, and the drug's deadly side effects emerged. Your monthly payments skyrocketed from $1,200 to $3,800. That unlocked wealth has now turned into iron chains you must repay every month. Even more terrifying is the phenomenon of negative amortization, where the monthly payment doesn't even cover the interest, causing the debt balance to actually grow. Investigations show that by the end of 2025, over 300,000 households had mortgages in negative amortization. This means 300,000 families are paying money every month, but their debt keeps increasing. This isn't loan repayment. It is financial slavery. Crime Scene 3. Systemic bankruptcy in the restaurant industry. New clue. Systemic disappearance of spending power. Modus operandi. Purchasing power transfer theft. As an economic crime investigator, you need to unravel the initial clue. Why are 4,000 restaurants closing down? Imagine you are an owner who has run a Cantonese restaurant in Chinatown for 15 years. Business was good before 2023, but starting in 2024, you noticed a strange phenomenon. Customer numbers didn't drop significantly, but per capita spending declined. A table of 4 used to order 8 dishes. Now they only order 5. They used to order alcohol. Now they only drink water. They used to bring kids to celebrate birthdays on weekends, but now they celebrate at home. This is not an isolated case. An RBC economics report shows that since 2020, food and housing costs have risen by 30%, while wage growth was only 25%. For low-income families spending over 40% of their income on basic survival, their remaining disposable income is virtually zero. The deeper criminal mechanism lies here. When home prices rise, not everyone benefits. Only homeowners feel richer, while renters and young people feel poorer. The problem is, homeowners who feel rich aren't truly wealthier. They can't spend their house like cash unless they are willing to move somewhere cheaper. But renters who feel poor are genuinely poorer. Their rent has risen from 30% of their monthly income to 50%, leaving only enough for basic survival, with no spare money for restaurants, movies, or non-essential goods. Statistics Canada data reveals that in the third quarter of 2025, consumer spending among the 25 to 34 age group dropped by 12% compared to pre-pandemic levels. This age group is the primary customer base for the restaurant and entertainment industries. Your restaurant has become a collateral victim of this wealth theft case. The money didn't disappear. It was transferred to landlords, banks, and mortgage payments. Crime Scene 4. The Government Accomplice Network. Charge: policy-based assistance in crime. Accomplice level: federal, provincial, and municipal governments. As an economic crime investigator, you will find that the government acts not as an enforcer, but as a primary beneficiary of this crime. The Ontario government's 2025 fiscal report shows that land transfer tax revenue accounts for 8.7% of provincial revenue. The situation in British Columbia is even more extreme, with real estate-related taxes making up 15.2% of provincial revenue. This means the government has become fiscally dependent on continuously rising house prices. They aren't doctors trying to solve the housing problem. They are drug dealers who need prices to rise. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, is the core money laundering tool of this criminal network. It insures over $1 trillion in high-risk mortgages, essentially classifying any loan with less than a 20% down payment as high risk. The evil of this mechanism is that banks take the profits while taxpayers bear the risk. This is the classic socialism for losses, capitalism for profits model. The help measures introduced by the government are actually pushing prices higher. First-time homebuyer tax credits increase demand, and extending amortization to 30 years lowers monthly payments so people can borrow more. Every policy superficially appears to help young people buy homes, but the actual effect is to drive prices even higher. Crime Scene 5. The Too Big to Fail Economic Kidnapping Case. Charge: Systemic Economic Kidnapping. Hostages: 41 million Canadians. As an economic crime investigator, you will discover the most terrifying fact of 2025. Real estate and its related industries account for about 25% of Canada's GDP. This isn't just an industry, it is a kidnapper of the entire economy. Imagine you are an ordinary Canadian homeowner with a house worth $750,000. If prices fall by 30%, you will lose $225,000 in equity. On a national scale, 10 million homeowner households would lose $2.25 trillion in paper wealth, equivalent to Canada's entire annual GDP. But this is only the direct loss. The systemic risk is even more horrific. The Big Five banks control over 85% of the mortgage market. These banks securitize mortgages and sell them to the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, provincial pension funds, insurance companies, and credit unions. Criminal network investigations show that every Canadian is a hostage of this system. A housing crash wouldn't just destroy homeowners, it would wreck everyone's pensions, destroy insurance company solvency, trigger a banking crisis, and lead to government fiscal bankruptcy. The kidnapper's logic is flawless. The more precious the hostages, the safer the kidnapper. Now the entire country is held hostage, and no one dares to let house prices fall. Crime Scene 6. The Shadow Financial Drug Network. Syndicate. The shadow banking system. Modus operandi. High-interest lending and risk laundering. As an economic crime investigator, you will find that when traditional banks reject certain loans due to risk control requirements, the shadow banking system steps in like a black market doctor. Imagine you are a 45-year-old engineer with a good credit history, but insufficient income to get a large enough loan from a traditional bank for your dream home. The shadow bank tells you, "No problem, we can help you. You just need to pay 5% more in interest." Imagine you are a 55-year-old accountant seeing term deposit rates at only 2%, while an investment product introduced by a friend promises a 10% annual return and claims to be backed by real estate, very safe. You might invest $500,000 of your retirement savings. The way the criminal chain operates is, the engineer's 25% interest payment covers the accountant's 10% return, and the remaining 15% is carved up by intermediaries. It looks like everyone is happy, until house prices start to fall. Investigation data from 2025 shows that when interest rates rose and price growth stalled, this system began to collapse. Borrowers started defaulting. MICS, mortgage investment corporations, began freezing redemptions, and investors discovered they couldn't get their money out. The most evil part is, These shadow banks have no deposit insurance. If they collapse, investors lose everything. But the risk has already spread to the entire financial system, and no one knows how many traditional financial institutions have invested in these high-yield products. Crime Scene 7. The International Money Laundering Headquarters. Criminal network, global money laundering syndicates, strongholds, core areas of Vancouver and Toronto. As an economic crime investigator, you will discover that in international crime files, Canada is flagged as a snow-washing destination. This isn't because of the beautiful snow, but because it is a global haven for laundering dirty money. The final report of the Commission of Inquiry into Money Laundering in British Columbia shows that in 2018 alone, $7.4 billion was laundered through BC, with $5 billion flowing directly into the real estate market. The Vancouver model has become a classic case study in global crime textbooks. Syndicate members bring millions in cash into casinos, buy chips to gamble small amounts, cash out the remaining chips for bank checks to obtain proof of legitimate income, and finally use these legitimate checks to buy luxury homes, leaving them empty to appreciate. Crime impact assessments show that when you bid in the real estate market, your competitors may not be ordinary families, but international criminal syndicates. These groups are flush with cash and don't care about paying a premium as long as they can launder the funds. They can easily bid 20 to 30% above market price because, for them, this isn't an investment, it's the cost of laundering money. Crime Scene 8. The Brain Drain Factory. Modus operandi. Systemic expulsion of talent. Victims. The best talent cultivated by Canada. As an economic crime investigator, you will discover the most heartbreaking crime scene. This is a factory specifically designed to kill dreams. The latest criminal statistics confirmed by the Leaky Bucket 2025 report show that in the first quarter of 2025, 27,086 Canadian citizens and permanent residents moved abroad, an increase of 3%. In the same period, 209,400 non-permanent residents left, a massive surge of 54%. The departure rate for economic immigrants within 7 years reached 48.1%. Imagine you are a 32-year-old neurosurgeon with an MD from McGill University, earning $380,000 a year at Toronto General Hospital. You realize that even with a doctor's income, you cannot afford a house within a reasonable commuting distance of the hospital. When a U.S. hospital offers a $680,000 annual salary plus housing allowance, you might say, "I don't want to leave Canada, but I don't want to be renting an apartment at 45. Imagine you are a 28-year-old AI researcher with a PhD from the University of Waterloo, earning $120,000 a year at a Toronto AI company, sharing a one-bedroom apartment with your partner for $3,200 a month. When a Silicon Valley company offers $220,000 annual salary plus stock options, you might think, "My algorithms could change the autonomous driving industry, but I can't even afford a car in Toronto." This isn't simply people moving to higher ground, but a systemic mechanism for expelling talent. The income trap means even high-income professionals are crushed by housing prices. Opportunities are missing because risk capital is sucked into real estate, leaving startups underfunded. And a career ceiling appears because the best jobs are in the US. As an investigator, you find that we are not only failing to attract global talent, but are actually feeding our own cultivated elite to our competitors. This is an act of economic suicide. The ultimate truth. Economic autopsy report. Cause of death: systemic economic failure triggered by real estate dependency syndrome. As the lead economic crime investigator, your final discovery is that, combining evidence from all crime scenes, The ultimate truth of this Canadian wealth disappearance case is this: we didn't die from external shocks or natural disasters, but from an autoimmune disease called real estate dependency. This disease causes our economic immune system to attack its own most vital organs: innovation capacity, talent reserves, spending power, and productivity growth. The complete chain of pathological mechanisms shows: capital misallocation leads to declining productivity. Consumption shrinkage makes the economy more dependent on real estate. Talent drain weakens innovation capacity. Financial risks force the government to maintain the bubble, and policy capture results in more measures that drive up house prices. The most evil aspect of this disease is its self-reinforcing nature. Every symptom exacerbates the others, forming a vicious cycle. Possible outcomes of the case. Economists predict two scenarios for Canada, and neither is fun. Scenario A: the Great Crash. This is the 2008 American style. The bubble bursts, prices plummet 30 to 50%, the banking system collapses, millions lose their jobs, and the currency crashes. It would be 2 to 3 years of anarchy, but the upside is that young people would be able to afford housing again. Scenario B: stagnation, Japanification. The government will do everything in its power to prevent a crash. They will print money, extend amortization periods to 100 years, and bail everyone out. This brings a more likely and arguably more painful result: lost decades. 30 years of zero growth, stagnant wages, and a slow, grinding decline in living standards. We will become a low-growth, high-cost national museum, a place where the rich own everything, the poor serve them, and the ambitious leave. Final testimony. As an economic crime investigator, your final conclusion is: Canada possesses all the elements to become a global economic superpower. Rich natural resources, a highly educated population, a stable political environment, and a superior geographical location. But now, these advantages are all locked inside mortgage loans. The closing of 4,000 restaurants isn't the end of this crime, but a symptom that is just beginning to show. The real victims are the future of all of us. The real estate trap isn't just about house prices, it's about the allocation of human energy. When an entire generation spends their mental energy worrying about rent, mortgage rates, and housing shortages, they aren't thinking about art, science, business, or community. We have trapped our collective potential within 4 walls of drywall. The real tragedy is, a nation cannot create prosperity by selling the same houses back and forth to each other. True wealth comes from creation, invention, and production, from jobs that make the world better. Because in economic criminology, the hardest part isn't identifying the crime, but convincing everyone to stop profiting from it. This economic crime case is still ongoing, and you are the witness. Do you agree with this investigation conclusion? Do you think Canada's economy can still be saved? Share your views in the comments section and let more people see this economic truth. If this investigation inspired you, please like and share it with your friends. Remember to subscribe, and we will continue to uncover the truth behind more economic crime scenes. The case is not closed, and the truth needs to be spread.